Welcome to the Communication Mastery Podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. We're tackling miscommunication with the power of understanding. We're growing our mastery of the foundation of teamwork and of all relationships. And so I want to ask you to help me spread the word about stronger, more effective communication by inviting some friends to listen along with you. Then discuss what you've learned and give me your feedback. What would you like to hear from us in future episodes so we can make this podcast even more effective? Thanks for joining me. Let's jump in. Welcome back. This week we're going to talk about the topic of communication being the oxygen of teamwork. That phrase came out again as I was talking with a new client this week, in fact, where we talked about the need for every team to be able to communicate effectively without missing out on the clues and the prompts that we get when we're communicating with one another. So many businesses struggle with their productivity or with their follow through because communication gets interrupted. So all of us communicate, don't we? At work, you're always talking to people, always interacting with people, but every one of us experiences miscommunication at some point of the workday. And so when we take the time to learn the communication styles, when we practice how to adapt to the people around us who are different, and I hope everybody's different on your team. Otherwise, you really don't have a team, do you? But those who take the time to invest in communication are the ones who win that battle. That they see that their teamwork flourishes because communication is strong within the business. And there are a number of different ways. I was thinking about this as I was preparing for today. There are a number of different ways that today's society weakens communication, particularly in business teams. And ironically, it's technology rooted mostly, the way that communication is being threatened. Just our devices distract us, don't they, from human connection. You look around any restaurant or even in many offices, and we're so attracted to what is the device telling me, what's the next notification I need to respond to, that we forget to build human connections, and those are the ones that cause our teamwork to be strong. Also, most of us are on social media, and the problem with social media these days is that it doesn't actually form connection, it forms disconnection because, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But and also many businesses, a lot of our communication these days is by text-only messaging, whether it's direct texts, the way that we've been texting for years, or whether it's through some of the more modern asynchronous methods of building teamwork, things like Teams and Slack. When you're only getting the words on the screen, you're not getting anything else to go with that. And so communication can often be hindered and misunderstanding can creep in. So let's look at what is needed for the oxygen to be flowing freely in our communication, for the communication to really bring a breath of fresh life into our teamwork. And the first is the whole area of focus. That's what I was alluding to in the introduction there. Because our devices distract us. There's always a shift of focus when you allow whatever notification it is to interrupt whatever it is you're doing in the moment, whether it's something you're working on as an individual or whether it's an interaction with a colleague or a workmate that you need to be able to build strong communication with to be effective and to reach the goals of the team. So when the devices distract us from human connection, there's definitely a focus issue creeps in, almost unnoticed to start with. It feels like you're getting lots more inputs, and that's good until the inputs distract you from producing outputs. And that's where we want to make sure we're focused in our communication. I mentioned social media. What you get from social media is this kind of toxic stew. You get everybody's perfect moments and everybody's best side, plus a whole load of filtered out discontent that's designed to get you to stay on the doom scrolling, to stay on the social media feed, to see where it's going, what's happening, what other people are saying. But all of that can distract me from the goals that my team is aiming for, or the vision that my business was established to achieve. And the team suffers when we're distracted by both the perfection of social media and also the discontent, the division that so often can be fostered. And then I mentioned the whole idea of text-only communication. When all I'm getting is emails, text messages, Slack threads, those kinds of things, then there is an increased potential for misunderstanding. Now, I want to be sure that I'm clear here, because a lot of times you'll hear people talk about Mehrabian's experiments back in I think it's the 60s and early 70s of the last century, where there was this whole thing of 7% is the words that we use, and the rest of communication is all the other factors. That statistic, the 7% words, and I think it's 55% facial expression, 35 or 38% tone of voice, that's often quoted, but it was researched in the context of emotional communication, of I really like this, or I don't like what you're doing there, those kinds of interactions between two individuals. And there, those proportions do hold true. But more modern research, more recent research has shown us that it's a little more complex than that. It's a little more nuanced than that. And so, yes, words are important, probably more important than the 7% that Mehrabian came up with. But communication is this dynamic, context-based process that's blending the words we use, the tone of voice that we're using, the vocal cues that may go along with the tone of voice, as well as body language, and more importantly, the context, or even the cultural aspects that are all part of communication. And you're blending this recipe together. And just like your favorite recipe, if you put a little too much garlic in, or a little too much spice, or not enough salt, all those kinds of things make a huge difference to the outcome. And so communication, we have to be sure that we're not relying on one ingredient only. And that's where text-only communication can always lead us into difficulties. The focus has got to be broader than the immediate statements on the screen or on the page. Let me interrupt today's episode just for a moment to address small business owners, because the challenges of running a business are multiple, aren't they? There's all of the technology that you have to master. There's the staff turnover. There's hybrid and remote work. There's all kinds of different things that you have to consider every day. But sometimes that causes us to overlook the primary thing that really means that your business will succeed, and that is your people. Your most important asset is the people that are running your business alongside of you. And every one of them is different. And so that causes all kinds of potential for misunderstanding or miscommunication, tension in the team. And this is the core issue for small business owners today. It's to understand your people, and then to maximize each one's impact and satisfaction in being part of your business. Communication IQ can really help with all of those issues and enable you as a business owner to be more relaxed about how fruitful and effective your team can be. So if it's been a year or more since your team thought about communication, reach out to me and let's see how I could help you put communication back at the center of your business goals so that you see the benefit right away. Now let's go back to the episode. And we need to take into account our actions, as well as the feedback we can get from interacting directly with a person, so that our communication is effective. So focus is a very important thing. Don't focus just on the words. Don't focus on the perfection and the discontent of social media that pulls me in and keeps me scrolling. Don't allow devices and technology to distract me from a focus on relating to the other humans on my team. All of those things will help us to communicate more effectively. The second thing that I wanted to highlight is consistency. I think it was Simon Sinek that I got this quote from, that consistency trumps intensity every time. And so even the little things you do, if you do them consistently, will produce greater results than just an intense focus on, hey, we've got to have a meeting and hash all this out, or whatever in terms of communication. Consistency flows from focus, doesn't it? Because it's more powerful to do those right things consistently, even though you don't see the fruit immediately. You can use intensity in high stakes moments. That's important to do. And some of the communication styles are very good at that. But it hinders communication in the longer term because it creates as much challenge as it solves. I heard a story from a friend just the other day that kind of illustrates this or underscores what I'm trying to say. He said he was going to the gym for the first time. He was a guy who was up in years, a bit like me, and he hadn't been exercising, and he knew he needed to lose some weight. He knew he needed to regain some muscle tone, that kind of thing. So he joined the gym and he went for his first visit, and the trainer took him around and showed him how everything worked and produced this list for him of, do this on this day and that on that day, and 10 reps of this once a week, those kinds of things. And he's like, wow, that's going to take forever to make a difference because it's just not intense enough. And so he goes around and he uses all the machines and he keeps pushing himself to do more. And the way he said it was, the next morning when he woke up, he found it was painful even to open his eyelids, let alone move any other part of his body, because of the intensity that he'd put into that first day. He hadn't gone for consistency. He tried to do it all in one go. And we're such an instant society, aren't we? We try and make things work overnight. And actually that puts you back rather than forward. Let me interrupt today's episode for just a moment to talk about how every relationship in our lives is built on a foundation of communication. So at home, so few families invest the time and the energy to understand themselves and each other so that they can bring out the best in one another. You'll find as you look at the profiles of your family members that each of you has something different to bring to the table. And if we can maximize the input from each of you, your family is going to prosper in all kinds of ways that you never thought possible. So I encourage you, let's look at your family's communication styles together and unpack your profiles to see how we can turn your differences into strengths and see your family flourish even more because you took a few days or a few moments to invest in communication. Now let's go back to the episode. So we don't want to put intensity. We want to pay attention to all 7 communication styles. We say that a lot on the podcast, don't we? Remember that you speak all 7 of those languages at some point of the day or of the week. And make sure you cultivate even your weaker ones to be aware of them. But also prioritize face-to-face real-time interaction when you can. Understand that today's society, there's a lot of offline communication, but as much as you can do some face-to-face or some real-time, even if it's a Zoom call or some sort of FaceTime call, to get facial expression, to get tone of voice in the communication, those consistent choices, they may take a little longer, they may not produce fruit immediately, but they do make a big difference. We want to broaden our discernment to really understand the context of communication, cultural aspects, as well as content and tone, so that we don't miss out on the whole of the picture. It's a lot more complicated than the 7-55-35 proportions that we've maybe talked about for so long. But at the same time, the recipe needs all of the ingredients and to adjust them by taste as you go, as it were. All of those pay dividends in the long run. So consistency is a great thing to focus on. We said that focus is important, but final thought on the whole idea of increasing the oxygen level in your teamwork is the whole idea of feedback. We talked about tone of voice and body language. Both of those factors give me feedback in the midst of communication of, is what I'm saying landing? Am I hearing what the other person's saying? Is there more behind what we're discussing that we need to dig into? All of those kinds of things. So we want to use active listening, where I'm not just listening so that I can respond to you, but I'm listening to be sure I've fully understood what you're saying. We've got episodes about that if you scroll back through the feed, where you can learn more about active listening. But also reflective responses. So I'm not just responding in the instant. I'm allowing what you've said or what you've communicated to settle in me before I give you a response. And if there's a disagreement, I want to make sure it's respectful. That's a lost art in today's society. If you say something that's different from what I agree with, the tendency is to just reject you or cancel you. But that's totally unhelpful in a team, isn't it? We want to invite input. Some of my best team members in some of the settings I work in are the ones who say, "And what else?" when I've given them feedback or when I've given them input. What else can I learn? What else can you tell me? What else have you experienced that would be valuable to me? Some or all of those different factors of feedback are missing when communication is operating the way it tends to operate today, with texts and the social media as our only frame of reference, those kinds of things, or even just the distraction of devices pulling me away from real human interaction. So here's a few thoughts for you to process as we close this episode out. Who is it that you interact with regularly? Who are the key people that you speak with and interact with as part of your daily life? And as you interact with them, which of the hindrances that we've mentioned do you find interfering with the oxygen flow of communication? What of those hindrances have caused misunderstandings for you recently? And how can you then address those challenges in order to gain more oxygen? You know, I was recently in Colorado hiking, and we're a mile above sea level or a mile and a half above sea level. There's a lot less oxygen up there. Most of my hiking on a day-to-day basis, I do on the beach with my feet in the ocean. I'm at sea level. And so my old body's kind of got used to that level of oxygen. It was much harder when the oxygen wasn't available to hike in the way that I normally would. However, it was worth it because of the views we could see. And so learning to increase the oxygen in our teamwork and in our communication is a very valuable skill. It doesn't leave you breathless in terms of the information you need and the collaboration that will cause the team to reach their goals. So how can you increase the oxygen level? How can you improve the communication? Some of the things that we've talked about, I trust will be helpful to you. And if you'd like help identifying what is it we can do next, what will make a big difference, that was the discussion I was having with my new client. That was what he wanted to achieve with his business. And so that's why we were having that discussion about oxygen in teamwork. And if you'd like help with it, just let me know. You can click the link in the show notes or contact me through my website. I'd be glad to help you increase the oxygen level in your communication so your team can benefit from that. And if this has been helpful to you, please share it with a friend. Maybe send a link or talk to them. That would be even better, wouldn't it? Talk to a friend and say, hey, let's listen to this together, see what we can learn. That's all for this week. Stay in touch. Give me your feedback. Tell me what you'd like me to focus on in future episodes, and I'll see you back here next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.